back to the program. The benefits of fasting. Let's get into that. Your physical health. Did you know that fasting, the study I found was talking more about intermittent fasting, but I think it goes for any type of fasting. Again, not a doctor. Fasting can reduce insulin resistance in the body, which is a huge deal for people who are diabetic or on the verge of being diabetic. I mean, can you imagine if you can reverse the effects, if you can reverse diabetes? And I know, like, ooh, what is she talking about? She's not a doctor. She doesn't know what she's saying. These are studies that have been done, researchers who have taken controlled groups of people and seen the effects of fasting on their bodies, on their insulin glucose interactions in their body. And the results are super, super interesting. If you don't believe me, go to my blog, the blog post I made on fasting. It's on my website, livingedenwellness.com. This study found that the people who tried fasting were better able to their body was better able to bring the glucose that was stored in their cells into their bloodstream. They had less crashes and spikes in their blood sugar levels. And I find that so interesting because you wouldn't think that just skipping one meal could have such an impact on your body and the way it interacts in the different systems. So check out that study. There's a link in the article, in the blog post. Another health benefit has to do with weight loss. And I can hear it now. Oh no, she's encouraging people to starve themselves and not eat and fasting. That's so bad for you. And I will say that some people, it can have negative effects on them, especially if you have a bad relationship with food. And in that case, I wouldn't recommend fasting because we don't want that. We want you to have a good relationship with food, obviously. And some people can have their metabolism slowed, but other people, studies have shown that people have their metabolism boosted when they do intermittent fasting or even other kinds of fasting. And the other reason that fasting is good for weight loss is just in the very essence of what fasting is, and that is reducing your caloric intake, meaning you do not eat as many calories as you usually do because you're eating only 2 meals a day. And I will say that if you are binging and eating like a ton during the other 2 meals of the day, then yeah, that's not going to work. There's really no point if you're going to do that because the purpose is not to starve yourself and then eat a ton of food. So just be mindful of that when you're fasting. If you do try fasting, just be mindful of how much you're eating. When you're not fasting, are you overcompensating during those meals? And if you are, just take note of that, readjust, and try to be more balanced with your meals. And you'll find that after fasting, your appetite has decreased because your stomach has shrunk. And my husband and I have both found that when we fast, especially like a prolonged fast, so more than 24 hours, afterwards we're like, we eat way too much than we need to. Like, we eat so much because it tastes good, and I'm like, I want some more of that, and just get another little helping. You know, it's just a little bit. And oftentimes our eyes are bigger than our stomachs, as we all know. And then after the meal, we're like, oh, I'm miserable. It kind of reminds me of Thanksgiving when my family and I get together and eat food, and we know that we don't need as much as we're getting. Like, we have a huge plate and then we go back for another plate and we're just like, oh, why did I do that? Afterwards, we're all like miserable on the couch. It's just ridiculous. But that's how fasting can help you reduce your calories, because it also changes your appetite and shrinks your stomach and gets your body used to eating just even a little bit less than it usually does. So that's the first benefit, is your physical health. And there are other ones, obviously, within that physical realm. Obviously, I'm not going to get into all of them. The second reason is your mental health. And why do I say that? Well, you know how we say your gut is your second brain? I don't know if you've ever heard that before, or like follow your gut, or anything to do with your gut. Basically, the microbiome of your gut, the millions of microorganisms living in your digestive tract, in your digestive organs, they are so key for your mental health. And that has to do with this intimate mind-body connection. And I really believe that this is where it happens. It's in the gut. And so if you are eating super healthy, you are filling your body with amazing nutrients, life-giving nutrients, you are going to feel incredible mentally and physically, obviously. But your mental state, your mind is going to be clear. You're going to think so quickly. You will have less issues with brain fog and things like that. I talked about that earlier. It's really, really amazing how your mind is so affected by what you eat and what goes on in your microbiome. I notice this when I eat pasta or potatoes or gluten, anything that is processed as well. I feel so heavy afterwards. And after I have that meal, it is so hard for me to concentrate on anything. Like I even remember in high school and in school in general, after lunch, it would be super hard for me to focus. I would want to take a nap. How many of you have wanted to take a nap after a nice big meal? I mean, it happens to all of us. And the reason is because our gut and our mind are connected. The mind doesn't have enough energy to properly function because the digestive system is so overloaded that it has to basically shut down or really reduce many of the other systems so that it can get this food processed and get it digested and get it flowing, get it moving, remove the nutrients that the body needs and get the rest out basically. And that's why portion control is so important and not overeating and getting too big of a plate, because actually less is more when you eat, as long as what you're eating is nutrient dense. So for example, you can have a smoothie that is packed full of greens, of nutritious fruit, of fiber, of protein from plant-based protein, hopefully. And you have basically a meal right there. And it can hold you over for a good while. If you're used to eating more, obviously it's going to be difficult at first, but you'll notice that if you reduce your portions, it'll be easier and easier for you to go longer and longer without eating such a big meal or eating too much. So that's the second benefit. And the third benefit is super interesting, and this is your spiritual health. Now, fasting is used in many different cultures and many different religions, and there is a spiritual refreshing that happens when you set aside your desire for food, we call it the flesh, the belly, the gut, the part of you that needs to eat, that wants to eat, almost the animalistic side of you. And once you put that to the side, the spiritual avenues are cleared. The spiritual pathways are more open and less bogged down by what's going on in your physical body and your mental state as well. So we talked about the mind-body connection. Well, obviously your mind, that's where your spiritual life is seated. And when your body is lighter, your spiritual health, your spiritual life is able to breathe. It's able to take bigger breaths. I have found that it's much easier for me to focus on spiritual things in my spiritual life and spiritual practices when I am fasting. And afterwards I feel super high spiritually. Like, that sounds a bit funny to say, but it's true. And my connection with God is so much deeper and more intimate. And I truly feel refreshed and reconnected with that part of me, because my spirituality is a major, major part of me, and who I am and what I do and how I go about my life in this world. So if you're in need of a spiritual reset, I would definitely recommend fasting, because it helps you find a deeper sensitivity to God, to spiritual matters, even to hearing God's voice. I've noticed that when I'm fasting, I'm better able to, it's like the mind clutter, the monkey brain, all of that is easier to silence, or even is already silenced. And I'm better able to think, to reflect, to listen as well, because it's super, super hard to listen to God, to listen for that still small voice that's pointing you in the direction and the path that you need to walk in, and finding guidance for all these different things that are going on in your life. And when I'm fasting, it's like all of that is erased, and all of this clutter, all of this junk, my own thoughts, my own will, my own desires, all of these things are put on the back burner, or are even reshaped and maybe erased, maybe molded to resemble something that is better for me. It's also much easier to meditate, which is another topic for another video, but meditation can also mean different things for different people. For me personally, it means sitting still and listening to what God wants to tell me. Sitting there without speaking or talking at God. It's about me listening. It's about what He wants to tell me. It's about His plan, His communication to me. And sometimes it's just me sitting there and just being in His presence and just soaking it up and just experiencing this beautiful presence of love, and not having to do anything or force anything or talk or anything like that. It's just me and God together in a quiet, simple moment of connection. And that is so beautiful to me. And sometimes He talks to me through thoughts that are put in my mind that I never would have thought of myself, or it's kind of hard to explain because it's still something that I'm exploring, but it's just thoughts that come into my mind that are just out of nowhere, and it's an exact answer to what maybe I was thinking about, or what was going through my head, or my concerns, or anything like that. So the spiritual implications of fasting are incredible as well, and I highly recommend trying fasting, especially if you feel a need for a spiritual reset button. So, Cutie.
Hi there.
Do you have some insights on fasting?
Yeah, the first thing that came to my mind is that fasting is about processing your emotions.
Yeah.
From experience, it happened many times that there was stuff from years ago that would just come out, and at first I was a bit surprised, like what should I do with it? But what I can say now is I just accept it as it comes. If it's anger, if I need to scream, I scream. I'll write it down. Or if it's sadness, then just cry about it.
Yeah.
And just let it go, because it's not good if it stays inside. So that's what comes to my mind. And then of course your mind is clearer. You make better decisions. You think faster. It's a lot better.
Yeah. Thanks.
Welcome.
You have experience fasting. When did you first fast for the
10 years ago.
10 years ago?
2013. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
And why did you do that?
Well, I saw people that told me about fasting and praying, and I've tried, and then I put my life back in order, actually.
You saw the
doing so,
impact. Yeah.
Just one day, then the week after one day, and
Oh, you did one day
like
per week?
one day per week during
Okay.
like a month or two.
Wow.
And
Like just like not eating anything?
yeah, like
Just water fasting?
Yeah, during the whole day, and I would eat in the evening.
Oh, okay.
Like
Yeah. So 24 hours of
Yeah.
not eating. Okay.
yeah. So
Interesting.
Here
That's
we go.
that. Well, I think that about sums it up. If you'd like a little bit more detail or the links to the different articles that I talked about, check out the blog post on my website at livingedenwellness.com. I'll put the link down below. And if you do try fasting, please let me know how it went. Please let me know if you have any questions, if you're curious, if you want to try this out, but you feel like maybe you don't know enough or you're just unsure and you want a little bit of support or just have your questions answered. I'd be really, really, really happy to answer those and just give you some encouragement. If you have enjoyed this video, if you found this valuable at all, if you know somebody who would enjoy it, please send it to them. I appreciate your time so much, and I'm really excited to share more information like this with you guys. If there's anything that you're curious about, any topic that you'd like to know about health, wellness, a holistic approach to healing, I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your questions, and I'll see you for the next video.